broadcasting from a secret location. A location the government insists does not exist. You're about to enter Restricted Airspace. With your host, Tina Marie. The unusual, the unexplained, the forbidden, conspiracies, the things you're not supposed to talk about. We do. This is Restricted Airspace. Now, your host, Tina Marie.
The red light has kicked on, the MVPs have been kicked out, and the VU meters turned to radioactive as we've unleashed enough unfiltered watts across the Vegas night sky to take down a Mogul weather balloon. A big welcome to all my friends and fans of the paranormal tuning in to KDWN, 7:20 a.m. here in Las Vegas Valley, and especially tonight from across the pond in the UK. I am your host, Tina Marie, and this is Restricted Airspace, the show that's not afraid to break into those secret government vaults to discover the hidden truth. So sit back, turn up your radios, your eyes to the sky, and remember, question everything, trust no one. Welcome tonight, everybody. This is Tina Marie here. This is Restricted Airspace, and before we get to my special guest tonight, want to make a couple observations right now. First of all, FEMA is planning November 13th and 14th a power grid drill. Okay, this is a joint simulation with the United States, Canada, Mexico, thousands of utility workers, FBI agents, anti-terrorist agents, government agencies. More than 150 private businesses are involved in this supposedly simulated, if you want to call cyber attack, that's what they're going to simulate. It's called the Grid X 2013 Preparedness Drill, and it's going to be one of the largest preparedness drill in the country's history. All right, they are going to be practicing an event unlike anything this country has ever seen. And I just got off the phone with my contacts in the government, and he told me that there's fear. It's just a matter of time, not when, not if, but when this is going to be an actual event and happen. Now, my question is, with this drill, so many FEMA drills that have been precursors to real events, is this going to be a precursor to a red flag? Is this going to be one of those false flag events that FEMA is preparing us for? So my suggestion is around November 13th and 14th, make sure you have a couple of weeks of food and water just in case, because, we know our government's track records with incompetence in running a program or a website. So we just want to make sure that you guys are prepared out there. So please do take a moment around that time, get some stuff, be prepared just in case our government makes a huge mistake. So tonight I have a very special treat for you as my good friend Malcolm Robinson joins me from the UK to talk about the Loch Ness Monster paranormal case files of Great Britain and the UFO case files of Scotland. If you have a question or a comment for Malcolm, you can call us in at 702-257-KDWN. That's 702-257-5396. Again, 702-257-5396. Major George Filer is off this week. He's doing some research for the National UFO Center, but he will return next week. So before we bring Malcolm on, and he's going to captivate you with all his wonderful reports from the UK, we're going to hook up those intravenous caffeine drips. I've got one flowing in the studio here. We're going to make up those tired minds. So, get up from your chairs and let's get going.
You there, boy. What day is this?
It's Friday night.
Friday night is cool.
Thank God it's Friday.
This is the best day of my life.
Just got pissed Friday. Live it up, oh yeah. Friday night. Friday, I'm in love.
We gotta do something. Absolutely. You know what we gotta do?
What are you gonna do?
We're gonna go out and party! Toga! Toga!
For the first time in my life, I feel like there's hope.
The inhabitants of planet Earth have looked to the stars for proof of other life. But the truth isn't out there, it's in here. Since World War II, the British government has been watching us, watching the skies. Buried in the vaults of the Ministry of Defense are thousands of reports on UFO sightings, some left unexplained.
If it could be shown that any UFOs were extraterrestrial in origin, people's entire belief system would fundamentally change.
Spring 1944. Britain was engaged in heavy bombing raids over Germany. Rumors of strange, unidentified missiles were getting through to top command. Considered a threat to public morale, the MOD files reveal that the order to keep them secret came right from the top.
Problem is, thousands of people have top secret clearance. When a subject is very sensitive, it needs to be further restricted, further compartmentalized, and that's when you get what calls to above top secret, and the UFO subject falls within that category, and it has since 1947 at least.
In 1974, in North Wales, thousands of people experienced a violent earth tremor and lights were seen falling from the sky. Some ufologists believe a UFO crashed, and there's been a cover-up ever since of the Welsh Roswell.
The government have the idea that if they disclose the fact that there are physical objects with maximum performance which we can't match, people would get in a panic.
Secrets to unfold. It's our time to come of age. Time for truth to turn the page. Don't wanna be inside the dark. Live within a question mark. Are they a friend or foe? Tell me now.
My special guest tonight, and for those of you in the UK, it's morning, is someone I've been friends with for many years, ever since having him on Majestic 12 TV. Malcolm is my link to the paranormal as well as all things UFO related. Across the pond, he has over 30 years of expertise lecturing exclusively on UFOs as well as the paranormal over in the UK. In fact, he was the first Scot to lecture on American soil in Laughlin, Nevada out here in 2009. He founded the Society of Strange Phenomena Investigations in Scotland back in 1979, so he has been at this for a very long time. He was the assistant editor for UFO Matrix Magazine and has appeared regularly on TV in the UK and all over the world. Malcolm is one of the foremost UFO and paranormal researchers in the United Kingdom. Besides his own investigations, he has assisted newspapers, TV, as well as radio stations numerous times with their UFO investigations. Please welcome a man who I think has probably one of the sexiest accents I have ever had on my show, my good friend all the way from the UK, paranormal researcher Malcolm Robinson.
Well, very good evening to you, Tina, and all your wonderful listeners, and what a wonderful introduction that was. Fantastic. Nice to be here. Nice to be part of the show this evening.
Yeah, well, it's nice to have, we need to let my listeners know, because a lot of them don't know that you initially started out as a skeptic. That was your plan. You were going to come on this and basically prove everybody wrong.
That's correct. As a young boy growing up in Scotland, I always had this deep-held fascination for all things weird and wonderful, and I started to buy all the books about the paranormal subjects. But even at that time, Tina, I really did not think that there were any substance to these cases. I kind of poo-pooed them. I didn't think there were any validity to these claims. But it's like anything else in life. Once you go through life and once you start to do that investigation, get your hands dirty, get out in the field, it soon became apparent that, you know what? There's no smoke without fire. There clearly is answers to be gained there. But yeah, I was very, very skeptical at first, but the absolute weight of evidence is astonishing to suggest that there's strange vehicles pervading throughout the skies of this world. Admittedly, the vast majority of UFO reports, as high as 95%, can be explained, but it's that small 5% that we're currently trying to understand. But some of that 5% could be our own black budget technology, strange aircraft that the American and British government are manufacturing and test flying in various parts of the world. So we have to be careful. But that aside, for me personally, there's still something very real operating in the skies of the world.
Well, and the thing is people forget that. I mean, for the United States think with Roswell in 1947, they think they hold the, if you want to call it the Holy Grail, and that we are the only ones that are being visited, when in truth that, the UK has really had some fascinating reports over the years, not just in UFO, but even paranormal-wise. I mean, they were doing it well before we were.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, America, being a vast country, has been touched by the UFO presence since time immemorial. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it's not just an American phenomenon. For sure that UFOs have touched every continent on this planet and are still doing so. And you're right, you know, the United Kingdom has seen some amazing, some astonishing cases which totally defy explanation. And, you know, sometimes I'm amazed that the ordinary man and woman in the street are not interested in this. I'm saying to myself, why can't you not be interested in something so mysterious as this? It still puzzles me, but yeah, I'm pleased to say that I've been involved with some, not them all obviously, but some great cases here in the UK, and it's these cases that more or less took me off that sceptical fence, because once you look at that data and you dot the I's, you cross the T's, you check with airports, you check with the military, you check with the government, you check with local... I mean, it's something you have to do is find out if there's a normal explanation. And in the main they are, but when that normal explanation is not hitting you in the face, that's the beauty of it.
Right. Now, tell our listeners, because I'm looking forward to heading out there next year, and especially going out to Loch Ness. Now, you have some experience with Loch Ness.
Of Laughlin?
Of Loch Ness.
Oh, Loch Ness,
yeah,
sorry.
Loch Ness Monster, Nessie.
Yeah, again, growing up in Scotland, my father and my mother used to tell me about this extraordinary creature that allegedly inhabited the 24 miles of Loch Ness. And as I grew older, this fascination was going more and more, and a lot of our family holidays were taken up to Loch Ness, attending and visiting villages like Drumnadrochit, Invermorriston, Fort Augustus. And I remember way back in 1969, we were on a pleasure cruiser traversing Loch Ness. And maybe it was just an overactive imagination, but I had binoculars, and I am absolutely convinced, even to this day, that I saw two humps appearing in the middle of the loch, and I trained the binoculars on these humps, and it slowly disappeared. The thing we have to be careful with, and it's like UFO research and ghost research, that there's a lot of things that could explain sightings at Loch Ness. When you have a boat coming up or traversing the loch, it creates this bow wave, separates the waves on each side of the boat. And when the boat disappears, what you're looking at is the two waves meeting in the middle and creating this what appears to be a series of humps. And for anybody coming to Loch Ness for the very first time, looking at that, if they haven't seen the boat, then they may think that they've seen Nessie, and they go in the newspapers, etc. But yeah, for me, and I'm not just saying it because I'm from Scotland, I do believe that we're dealing with a very real, as yet unknown animal, or animals, I should say, in Loch Ness. The best evidence to support the evidence is sonar. Sonar has picked up some amazing targets in Loch Ness over the years. And I do believe there's something there. And the good thing is that, way back in 1994, I was one of the few people on this planet to actually go down in the submarine at Loch Ness. And it was a 35-foot submarine sponsored by Swatch watches. And it was full of all the dials, and there was condensation coming down the inside. It was wonderful, really great, And this submarine had a glass portal in the front nose of the submarine, toughened glass. It had about 5 or 6 halogen illuminated lights above the canopy of the glass. And we went down to a depth of just under 800 feet. And we traversed the loch floor with the nose coming down. It was a sandy silt floor, very little sign of any water vegetation. And surprisingly, very little sign of any fish. One would assume that this bright light penetrating this inky blackness would attract fish, but surprisingly it didn't. And at one point, as the submarine was going over slowly across the loch floor, it just fell away. A big chasm fell in the loch floor, and I said to the pilot of the submarine, "Look, can we go down there?" He says, No. He says, "We've got to stick to our allotted course." And it was a wonderful experience to be where hardly anybody else in the world has been, underneath Loch Ness,
and people
looking
don't realize,
for Nessie.
Yeah, and people don't realize how deep Loch Ness is. I mean, when you hear the Loch Ness, they think it's closed off from the ocean. They think it's a shallow lake, but it is really deep.
It is deep. It's just under 900 feet in depth. Some sonar has said it's over 1,000 feet, but in the main, it's around about 900 feet. It's deeper than the North Sea, would you believe? And it's a fascinating place to go to. It's 24 miles in length, about a mile wide, and it's had these tales of these water beasties all over the years. It started off with the Caouette. It's a Scottish water horse. That was a mythical water horse that was seen in Scottish lakes and lochs since time immemorial. But these days, more people are seeing what they describe as this long-necked beast with a small head, with several humps, and I do believe it's there, yeah.
Now, what else we had on Facebook on the group page that we have set up for the radio show? Somebody made a comment about it possibly being one of those giant eels, and what did you say?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people. It started off a lot of people believing that it was a plesiosaur that had came into the loch. Loch Ness was open to the sea several thousand years ago, and they estimate that some plesiosaurs was coming into the loch, and then as the land rose at the Inverness end, it cut off the plesiosaurs for moving back out again. But I don't believe it's a plesiosaur at all, not for 1 minute. You're right, some people have said lately that it could be a giant eel. And some of the photographs that I've been looking at recently of this long-necked creature coming out of the loch does look like a big eel. The problem I've got is that obviously eels don't jump like salmon out of the water. But there are a lot of eels in Loch Ness, and I guess that if they came close to the surface, the coils of that serpent-like creature may be just a normal eel. And again, we have to be very careful when we look at things in the loch, because
they've had reports though too of that thing, being out of the water, literally crossing across roads. So if it was an eel, there's no way that people would mistake an eel. Number one, if there could be an eel off land, but they wouldn't mistake that coming across the ground.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, crazy as it sounds, there are reports of land-based sightings of the Loch Ness Monster, which I totally disregard. But in my new book, which will be coming out next year, we do look at some of these land sightings, but I don't think we can put any serious stock on that at all. I mean, we've got to look at the ancient sea serpents and, ancient mariners as they traverse the oceans claim that they saw these long serpent-like necks sticking out of the oceans. And it makes me wonder, where are those reports today? We've got pleasure cruisers, we have ships, a lot more ships on the oceans. Where are those serpent-like creatures today? And what we also have to remember is that obviously there's a lot of other lochs and lakes right across the world, Ogopogo in Canada, etc. There's Russian lakes, Irish lochs, all have these strange creatures in the waters. And it just amazes me that at this point in time, we can't safely say with any sincerity what these creatures are, but we are still obviously looking.
Well, and we had a poll up on the website, and basically 55% of the people believe that the Loch Ness is real, but there was a percentage that didn't believe it, and I think a lot of that has to do with the location. That a lot of people believe Roswell happened, but that's because they're from the United States. And I think until you've gone to that area, which, like I said, I'm looking forward to, and actually seen the area for yourself, I think it's hard to judge and say, well, yeah, it didn't happen, because you're not from that area. You don't hear the tales from the elders who talk about this event. I mean, what's your take on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've sadly never been to Roswell myself. One of these days I do hope to get there. But we should never, ever, ever throw the baby out with the bathwater. Just because something looks ridiculous or sounds ridiculous, it doesn't mean to say that it's necessarily so, that it's a lot of rubbish. So when I hear tales, not just from Roswell, but from all over the world about a very, very bizarre UFO case, I don't poo-poo it. We've got to look at it. And in the context of Loch Ness, people thinking maybe it's a gimmick, it's a tourist attraction. Admittedly, yeah, I mean, there is a lot of gift shops around Loch Ness selling model Nesses. I dare say, Roswell is a small town. It's got model UFOs. And I guess you can't blame the local people for capitalising on what is in their area. It's part of human nature. But certainly for Loch Ness, I mean, I can remember one time some scientists said that you could get the population of the world 3 times over in Loch Ness. That's incredible. Who makes these things up? And another thing I should say to your listeners, that do bear in mind that a strange fish, a prehistoric fish called the coelacanth, was thought extinct. It was thought extinct. We had the bones of the fish, but it turned up alive initially in 1938 off the coast of Madagascar. And this strange prehistoric fish is still being seen today and caught today. We're uncovering new species of insects, of new animals on this planet that previously we didn't even know was there. Obviously, we have the Bigfoot, the Sasquatch, the Almani sightings in North America and elsewhere. So it's a wonderful place to be. We know so little about planet Earth. We know more about the surface of the moon than we do what's under our oceans.
And the thing is, you have to... Right, and you have to go back. I mean, I remember the comment, the line from Jurassic Park when they talk about, genetically altering, and bringing the dinosaurs back. And they said, well, nature will find a way. And I really, truly believe that just because something is extinct doesn't mean it's necessarily extinct. Like you said, we have so much of this earth that we have not even discovered. There's so much, especially, like you said, of the ocean that goes uncovered. We're finding new species every single day. So who's to say that this species does not exist and we're just, a little slow figuring it out?
It's absolutely true. I mean, we know so little about ourselves, our place in the cosmos, and our own planet. And we're learning it every day, and it's all about science, it's all about understanding. I mean, I'd look at it like this. We're on a ladder of understanding here, and we're only at rung 2. There's so much more to explore. And I find it very, very exciting to be involved in the subject. People call me an expert. I'm not an expert, not at all. I'm just a normal guy who's got this deep-held fascination for these strange, mysterious objects, of which Loch Ness is part and parcel of that. And I just hope that it's not too soon before we can get a handle on that. Incidentally, I did have an idea to trap Nessie, would you believe, back in the 1990s. I had devised a trap which possibly could trap Nessie, and that would be explained. Now, surprisingly, Loch Ness, or the creatures in Loch Ness, is protected by an old Inverness bylaw that anyone who harms it or kills it will be thrown in jail. So maybe it's a good job that didn't happen. But
well, I guess Steven Spielberg was supposed to take and finance that, wasn't he?
Absolutely, yes. It came to the attention of movie mogul Steven Spielberg, and he was absolutely fascinated by my attempts to try and capture Nessie, and he was going to put up the money to build this trap. But sadly, like anything else in life, as time moves on, he went on to do other movie projects, and it fell through. But I still feel, Tina, that this trap idea would be something very valuable, because I'm one of these guys who want answers yesterday, and it's but I feel it still is viable, yeah.
Okay. Well, we're going to take our break at the bottom of the hour here, Malcolm. When we come back, we're going to get into those UFO files, because people have to. I mean, you sent me a bunch of them, and I started looking into some of them, and I'm amazed. I mean, I'm hooked. I'm going to get all these books from the UK because I am just fascinated with the number of UFO sightings that have been out there that, for me being here in the United States, I did not even know existed. So when we come back here, we're going to talk to you about that. So hold on, okay? When we come back, more with Malcolm Robinson as we get into his UFO case files on KDWN 720 AM. I am your host, Tina Marie, and you're listening to Restricted Airspace, your connection to the paranormal world here in Las Vegas as well as around the world. If you have a question or comment for Malcolm, please call into our hotline at 702-257-KDWN. That's 702-257-5396, 25396, or head over to restrictedairspace.com. Click on the green icon button and join our live chat. So YouTube sensation here. You might have recognized this gentleman from a little while ago. The song, the Fox song, you'll know who this is, but it's Yovis taking us out to break with Stonehenge.
What's the meaning of Stonehenge? It's killing me that no one knows why it was built 5,000 years ago. Why did they build the Stonehenge? How could they raise the stone so high, completely without the technology? We have to die.
We will return to Restricted Airspace with Tina Marie after this.
Alien Deceptions, a suspenseful sci-fi romance thriller by Tina Marie, featuring the tantalizing Erica Jones and the mysterious Russell Hamilton. An out-of-this-world book of fiction based on years of document facts and files the government does not want you to know about. At least, not yet. Alien Deceptions by Tina Marie. Available now at Amazon.com or get a signed copy at TinaMarieEntertainment.com. Get your copy now.
Now, back into Restricted Airspace with Tina Marie.
I just don't wanna be lonely, 'cause the lights were shining ever so bright. In my hand there's a pulse of my beating heart. Biting my tongue, there's a plastic man on the telephone. You see the bright light shining, I don't know. Can you see the bright light shining, shining? I saw you at home and nobody believes me. I was 16 miles from home with nobody inside.
That's right, I saw a UFO and nobody believes me. Welcome back to Restricted Airspace. I am Tina Marie. That was Sneaky Sound System, UFO. Links to all songs this week are featured on my website at restrictedairspace.radio.com. Follow the Amazon links and get your copy now. And do you have a CD or song you might want featured on the show? Maybe a conference or event you want highlighted? Have a new book that deals with UFOs, ghosts, conspiracies, or the paranormal? Or would you like to be a guest on this program? Then drop me an email at Tina Marie, restrictedairspace.radio.com. That's Tina Marie at restrictedairspace.radio.com. A big thank you to a few of my listeners I got a chance to chat with this week. Richard Jensen, who tunes in from Thailand, Kat from Canada, and a new listener here from the from Vegas, Johnny Skulls. So I want to wish them all thank you for sending me some emails and chatting on my Facebook page. Appreciate it. Thank you to everyone for the emails. I get them every week. I try to respond to everyone. It gets a little crazy, but I will get back to you. Now let's catch a flight back across the pond to my good friend from the UK, Malcolm Robbins. Malcolm, are you there?
I'm still here, Tina, yes.
All right, let's get into these UFO case files because they are absolutely fascinating. I mean, you have issues. You have so many more there that are equivalent to Roswell than we have here in the United States, and people just don't talk about them.
Yeah, I mean, it's like we said at the top of the show, Great Britain as a nation has had its own share of absolutely fantastic UFO cases over the years. And I'd just like to share just some of a few of those cases with your lovely listeners. Probably the biggest case, or one of the biggest cases to occurred in Scotland was what we call the A70 abduction case. Now, until 1992, I hadn't really researched personally any of these type of abductions, of which obviously America and Canada and the rest of the world has had lots. Now, very briefly, it is a long case, this one. Two gentlemen, Gary Wood and Colin Wright, were on an August evening back in 1992 driving in their car from Edinburgh, the capital city of Scotland, and their destination was a small village of Tarbrax in West Lothian. Now, as the car exited Edinburgh, the car then went down the A70 road, and as they further travelled down the road, there was fields on either side. They were in countryside, so they were in sparse countryside. They'd left the built-up city of Edinburgh. Driving down this country road at night, and suddenly they observed this disc-shaped object hovering about 20 feet above the surface of the road, about 500 yards in front of them. Both men knew straight away that this wasn't a conventional helicopter or an aircraft of any shape or description. They knew that this was totally out of sorts. Now, rather than stop the car and go back, they went, no, put the foot on the gas and drove underneath this hovering disc-shaped object. As the car was directly underneath this object, whatever this was, it emitted this silver sparkling effect, which descended from beneath this object and hit the car. And as soon as this sparkling effect, hit the car, both men were enveloped in total and inky blackness. They couldn't see their hands in front of their face. They couldn't see the dashboard of the car. They couldn't see each other. Where on earth are we, they thought. Seconds later, or what appeared to them to be seconds later, they thankfully regained their sight. The car was shuddering very, very violently on the road. They drove fast, like a bat out of hell. They just drove down the road. They went to their destination. They knocked on the occupant's door, and the lady who answered the door says, "Where have you been? You're an hour and a half late. What's going on here? How are you so late?" Now, the journey, Tina, should only have taken about 35 minutes or so, but they were an hour and a half over time. Now, that night and subsequent nights thereafter, they had strange dreams of these small grey creatures coming into their dream world. They found scars on their bodies, scoop-like marked scars that previously were not there before. Everybody knows their body. We go in showers, we take baths, we know our bodies. And where did this come from? And then at that point, Gary felt that, you know what, maybe this is one of those stupid, crazy UFO things. Can it be? What if it is? So they decided to contact our society, Strange Phenomena Investigations. I listened intently to both men telling me exactly the visual stimulus that they saw. And I says, look, guys, would you be happy to go under what we call hypnotic regression in an attempt to perhaps, and it's a big perhaps, see if anything else happened that night? They said, Malcolm, please, we'll do anything. We need to know what's going on. We really need to know. So we subjected both men to a professional hypnotic session, regression session, and very briefly for your listeners, we took them back to that evening, and the following you're about to hear, is what happened under hypnosis. The car was stopped in the road. They were taken forcibly out of the car by these small grey beings, roughly about 3.5 to 4 feet tall, childlike body, bluey grey translucent skin, black inky almond-shaped eyes, pear-shaped heads. They were taking on board, we presume, this hovering object. They were stripped naked, and both men were separated and taken to different rooms where some form of medical or clinical examination was performed on their bodies. Both men, as you can imagine, was extremely terrified. And at one point, Gary really, really wanted to punch one of these wee fellas, but he couldn't move. He was absolutely immobilized as he was lying on this flat table. And all he could do was move his eyes. And so much more was involved in that case. But and Gary's wife did not really believe in her husband, which he was, quite unhappy about. You live with someone, you want their support. Until one night, I received a phone call in my house from Gary's wife, and she says, Malcolm, can I apologize to you? I said, why? She says, well, last night I was lying in my bed, I was reading a book, and Gary was sleeping next to me, and I finished the book, closed the book, put it on the bedside table, switched the bedside table lamp off, and within about a minute and a half, something grabbed my ankles and pulled me forcibly down the bed And whereas my head was on the pillow, it was now down the middle of the bed. I looked, and in the misty haze in the bedroom, I saw 3 small grey creatures standing at the foot of my bed, and they wobbled through the wall. They just moved through the bedroom wall and disappeared and were gone. And this is one of these cases. Now I've only really briefly touched the surface on that. You know,
Oh, yeah, no.
At one point, Gary saw a young girl sitting on the floor, completely naked, with her knees under her chin. She had her arms around her legs, and she was softly crying. And she turned her head and looked at Gary, and Gary says, "I'll never, ever forget that distraught face of this other female, who I don't know, sitting on the floor of this UFO, call it what you will." It is a bizarre case. We are making a movie production on this for DRB Entertainment in London with the lovely Dion Rose, who has heard this story and the internet really wants to make a motion picture out of this, which we're in talks with some actors and stuff.
Now they're not gonna manipulate this like they did with Fire in the Sky, because I remember talking to Travis Walton, and Travis told me basically that he was thoroughly disgusted with the fact that Hollywood got a hold of it and completely manipulated and it's Hollywood. They're going to sensationalize the UFO event. I mean, is there going to be some kind of control so that it tells the true story and not the Hollywood story?
I'm glad you said that, Tina, because there's no way that I would have allowed anybody to get their hands on this story and put a lot of salt and pepper and give it arms and legs and take it there and take it. You're correct. The problem we have in the movie world is that, and I can agree with Travis, that they put a lot of salt and pepper on these films and take it to places where it didn't go. And I said to the producer, I said, you mustn't do this with the A70 movie, because it must tell the truth. It must stay to the facts. Don't take it off in a different direction. The problem we've got, of course, is the middle part of the movie where we have to use CCG and stuff to do the aliens on board. I understand that, I know that, but we're still going to keep it true to the tale for sure, definitely.
Okay, cool. Now give us another one. Give us because we only have about 10 minutes, 15 minutes left. Give us another short one out there, because there's, like I said, there is so many UFO files in the UK, and if people really want to, get an idea of what's out there, you need to read Malcolm's books. I mean, he's got a few of them. It's a Paranormal Case File of Great Britain, but he has a UFO Case File of Scotland. He's got his new book, UFO Case Files of Scotland 2, and you also have another book coming out, you said in January?
That's correct, It's Paranormal Case Files of Great Britain, Volume 2 is currently with my publisher, and fingers crossed that should be out in January. But yeah, I mean, I wish I could tell your listeners, your lovely, lovely listeners, so much more about these cases. Another quick one, 1979, the year that I formed my society, was one of Scotland's biggest cases as well. Occurred to forestry worker Robert Taylor, who was employed by the Livingston Development Corporation in central Scotland. Now, he had no interest in UFOs at all, and his job was to ensure that no cattle or sheep strayed into the woods. That was his job, or part of it. And on the morning of November the 9th, 1979, he was walking along this forestry path in Decmont Woods, and the path turns into a clearing. And he's walked this path many, many times before, Tina. And on this morning, his life was about to change. He was about to be thrown into the twilight zone. Because as he approached the end of this path and into this clearing, he saw this massive dome-shaped object with a flange going around its circumference. And he's standing there. He's looking at, what on earth is this? And then it disappeared. Then it solidified again and disappeared again. And he had his dog with him at that time, and his dog was barking. And then suddenly, descending from beneath this hovering object was 2 spherical, they looked like Second World War sea mines, those mines in the North Atlantic with the prods bobbing along in the water, dropped down from beneath this object and rolled across the grass. They stopped, and then they projected these rod-like projections to his person, grabbing him at both hips and pulling him very, very forcibly towards this larger object. And at this point, he smelled a horrible, horrible burning smell pervading the whole area. And he heard a swishing sound, as if you had a school cane, those long canes, and swished it. Then bang, he lost consciousness. When he regained consciousness, the larger object was gone, the smaller object was gone. There were over 40 holes in the grass, triangular and circular marks, track-like marks in the grass. He tried to radio base from his truck, his pickup truck, but he couldn't speak. He had a graze under his chin, a graze on his head. And when he got home, his wife says, "What's happened to you?" And he explained what had happened. The police became involved. They fenced off the area. I became involved. I saw the marks in the grass. And, to this day, it's still one of the most famous cases in Scotland. There even is a cairn, a big stone cairn, with a plaque on the cairn saying, just commemorating this particular site. The thing I want to stress, Tina, is that this chap, as I said, no interest in UFOs. He was a normal guy. The last thing in the world was to have an encounter with this. And this is what your listeners should be aware of. It can happen to anyone, these type of things. And it's to these puzzling accounts that our society and other societies the world over are trying to ascertain what's going on here. And it was a very special case for me back in the early days, yeah.
Now, what's your take on because the UK just recently released they're supposedly released all their UK, their UFO files. I don't think they've released everything that they can release. I think they released just enough to satisfy the public's demand for Freedom of Information Act. What's your take on those files that were released from the UK?
Absolutely. First and foremost, it's good that under the Freedom of Information Act passed initially in America, that you guys saw a lot of case files coming from your own government. It took a wee while for Great Britain to have that, but thankfully we have had some files released, drip-fed to the public and ufologists over the past several years. I do agree. They are not. It's only the tip of an iceberg. There's so many files beneath the water level that we're not seeing. I'm convinced of it. I'm convinced that the governments of Great Britain, America, and all over the world are not telling us the full story of what's really going on. In Scotland, we campaigned to get initially your Prime Minister, Tony Blair, John Major initially, and we asked John Major to come to Scotland, look at all the Scottish case files, we'd show him all the evidence, show him all the video footage, and he decided, and the British government said no. When Tony Blair was elected, we campaigned for him to come to Scotland and look at these files, and all we got, was the tired old statement from Whitehall in London is, as these objects do not constitute a threat to the defence of the United Kingdom, the British government do not seek to explore any further these UFO cases. That, was so annoying for me because some of these sightings were so close. You could have thrown a stone at them. They were so close, above rooftops, above houses. And why is the British government not looking at these things? You know what? I think they are. I think that was just a statement of sorts.
Well, you figure do you know how, there's been at least six countries in the last month that have reopened their UFO files. Peru, I think, was one of them. But, you have like 6 countries that said, we closed them, we're no longer interested in them. And now all of a sudden they're opening them, checking them out. So I think Great Britain, just like with the United States, when they said they were no longer looking into them, they're looking into them. They looked into them well before it was public record. I just think they just threw enough out there to satisfy us because we're never going to know the whole truth.
Yeah, that's true. I think they are in cahoots. We haven't got time, but we could look at stories maybe later of MELABs, of these abductees claiming to have been taken to various establishments and seeing military people and military regalia. That frightens me. That worries me. That if that's the case, it would seem that the governments of this world are in cahoots with these people. The thing is, we have to understand the vast amount of oceans in this world. So many UFOs have been seen entering and exiting the oceans of this world that they may well be here, more so around the island of Puerto Rico. I think For me personally, though, Tina, I think it's more dimensional. I think string theory, quarks, neutrinos, our science today is still trying to get a handle on other dimensions, but I think it's more a dimensional thing than an extraterrestrial thing. But that's maybe for another show.
Well, let people know where they can get your books, because I've already have them all. I'm looking forward to seeing you next year when we go to Paranorth in 2014 out in the UK. I'm going to have you sign all of your books for me. So where can you get your books?
Yeah, you can either get them from my publisher, which is www.healingsofatlantis.com. So if you check out Healings of Atlantis on Google, that will bring up the website from my publisher, and you'll find my books there. And at the end of the day, all I'm trying to do is just present the evidence to Joe public and say, look, have a look. If you don't like it, fair play, but it's all about collecting the evidence and pushing that to the public and getting their understanding to try and educate the people of this world that things are more stranger than you'll ever realize.
Well, they always say what fiction has more truth in it than nonfiction, correct?
Yeah, that's right. And it's just like I said earlier, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Right now, I'm speaking to a chap from Yorkshire. He's called Alien Bill, who's taken lots of photographs of these strange orbs in the sky, and his hand is actually lighting up. And over the past few days, he's sent me some photographs of this. It's absolutely astonishing.
We have him on the show next week. He is joining me on the show next week. So I've been getting some of his pictures too, and I'm going to be posting them on my website. You're right. The stuff that I've kind of gone back and forth and talked to him, I'm looking forward to him being on next week too.
Yeah, absolutely. And the good thing about the Scottish UFOs as well, Tina, is we have these hotspots, these window areas, of which there's many across the world. Gulf Breeze and Pensacola, etc. is one. Central Scotland, Bonnybridge, has seen a big rise in UFO reports over the past 15 years or so. So it's ongoing. Obviously, there's a lot of cases that I could tell you about, and it's just so great to be part and parcel of them.
Yeah, and you have quite a few crop circles out there, too. I mean, we're going to have Barbara Lamb on here in December, and she's going to be talking about crop circles. And she's gone out there and done huge reports on the number of crop circles. Now, granted, just like, nowadays, currently, with all the technology, you have a lot of hoaxes that can go on, especially with the CGIs and stuff. But even with the crop circles, there's a lot that are hoaxes. But you've had numerous reports, especially I've noticed over the last, month and a half, crop circles out there in the UK.
Yes, absolutely, and it's astonishing the amount of crop circles that the United Kingdom have had, more so obviously from the county of Wiltshire in England, and there is something going on. I mean, my personal belief is that, well, the vast majority are man-made, without a shadow of a doubt. We have over a dozen teams in England making these crop circles to try and outdo their fellow teams to see who can make the best one. But having said that, one of my good mates, Matthew Williams, who is a crop circle maker, and he says, Malcolm, even when we're making these crop circles, we see balls of light dropping down from the sky and weaving in and out of the crop forms. We see shadowy figures at the edge of the crop field, and they say to themselves, oh my goodness, we've been rumbled. It's the farmer's caught us. So we start walking up to this shape at the edge of the field to apologize, and the shape just disappears. So even the guys that make the crop circles are saying there is a recognizable phenomena associated with them. And it's the quickness of some of these crop circles as well. We've had aircraft going over fields, 10 minutes later they come back, and this amazing pictogram, all these satellite circles in the field, whereas 10 minutes before, it wasn't there. So I don't think that they're all man-made. Most of them are, but there is something associated with crop circles. We have them in snow, we have them in wheat, barley, rye. So it's all over the place, yeah.
Okay. Well, just to let my listeners know here, don't forget, get his books. You have UFO Case Files of Scotland 2. Those are called The Sightings, Paranormal Case Files of Great Britain, and UFO Case Files of Scotland. You can get those. I will have links to those on my website. So, Malcolm, I want to thank you for, getting up. It's like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the morning now in the UK there. So, and I'm going to see you in September of next year at the conference. So I'm going to maybe see if we get you on for a few minutes when we do my live show from there. I think that'll be kind of good. So I want to thank you for, kind of joining us here on Restricted Airspace. So,
Tina, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you and your lovely listeners. And I would just, in parting, say to your listeners, keep an open mind. Support Tina and her show, and because this world is far stranger than we ever can imagine. Pleasure speaking to you, Tina. Good luck with your future guests, and good luck with the show.
All right, thank you, Malcolm. That was Malcolm Robinson. I want to thank Mike McKenzie of MVO Productions for all the production work he does for this show. Thanks, Mike. And more information on Mike's company, you can get the links at my website. Same with anything to do with Malcolm, you can head over to restrictedairspace.com. All the links to Malcolm's books, including pictures and stuff, are there on my page. I want to thank the staff here at KDWN 720 AM for all their wonderful support, the use of this great studio, and allowing me to hijack their 50,000 watt signal. However, the biggest thanks has to go out to you, the listeners. I want to thank each and every one of you. You guys have made this show extremely popular across the web. I get emails all the time, so thank you so much. Tune in next Friday at midnight as ufologist Bill Rourke, a.k.a. Alien Bill, another good friend from the UK, joins me to talk about UFO research and personal alien experiences. This is Restricted Airspace. I am your host, Tina Marie, and as always, remember, question everything, trust no one.
If there's something you want to talk about, something you want to know, something you are afraid to ask, then this is the show for you. Follow us every Friday night at midnight as we enter Restricted Airspace with Tina Marie. For more information or to contact us, go to restrictedairspace.radio.com. Restricted Airspace.